Welcome to another episode of Heroic Hotline. I want to thank you for joining us again this week. We are blessed to have Kenneth Haroff join us here. Kenneth is wants to talk about coaching men and being there to support men, and this is such an important topic that we've really leaned into at Heroic Men is trying to combat that epidemic of loneliness that seems to be penetrating through a lot of men's lives, but especially our young men. So, welcome, Kenneth, and thank you for taking time to join us.
Thank you, Sean, and thank you for having me. This is quite the honor to be able to speak with you and speak with your group.
So, what is it exactly that you do to help support men?
Well, I'm a Catholic men's life coach. So what is life coaching? We'll define that. Life coaching is where the coach and the client take a journey together. They talk about where they want to be with their relationships, with their health, with their finances, with their career, any part of their life. Um, what is their goals? How are they going to get there? What's standing in their way? And then I do that. I also do what's called men's work. So men's work is a little bit more challenging. For an example, again, during a conversation with a man, like we talk about career finances, and they say, "Oh, next year I want to do X, Y, Z, and I want to be making $80,000 a year," and I'm looking at a man that his potential is to be making $250,000 a year. I'm going to challenge the 80,000. Why did you choose 80,000? What's about that goal? What is that really going to serve you and your family to where you want to be in your bigger mission and vision in life? So coaching is asking the right questions and pulling information from the client, and then men's work is challenging that and pushing them even further to help them see that there is more, especially when it comes to relationships is probably the biggest area. And then I also help men with healing from past trauma and wounds. Um, Part of my coaching, I do somatic breath work and some other things to help them actually um, delve into the realm of emotions and trauma and wounds, because those are holding them back in all the areas of their life. One of the,
Well,
yes, go ahead, Sean.
no, go ahead. You said one of the areas, or
One of the areas that men tend to struggle with, I believe most of us do, we struggle with our spirituality. We struggle with our connection with God. We struggle with our prayer life. We struggle, to stay consistent and you know we battle a lot of sins and addictions and all these things. And then you have these beautiful men that show up in your group, right? You have these beautiful men that set up men's groups at their parishes and churches so that they can start addressing, some of these spiritual ills, some of these spiritual things in their life that they want to accomplish. And I think that's great. What what holds a lot of those men back from really succeeding in that is they didn't really take a look at their emotional and physical, selves, where they really got some emotional and some physical things to take care of that would help them get so much more from the work that you guys are doing. Like, you guys do this beautiful work, you put things together, you have a process, you have substance, you have direction, you train leaders, you do all these things in the spiritual part. And what I'm speaking up about is that some of these men they need help. They need other help. They need therapy. They need counseling. They need to go to a 12-step group because of their how far down the addiction travel road they went. And to really challenge the men that are delving into their spiritual realm and into their faith. What other things are holding you back? What other things do you need to address? Instead of trying to use the spiritualness to address all your problems, some of your other problems need to be addressed so you can be more spiritual. You see, like, we got to get the order correct. And so I've mentioned this before, even in the heroic men group online, which I would recommend everyone
Mhm.
join and jump in and comment and seek support there also. Is that there is this thing called spiritual bypass where we try to bypass all the really hard stuff and just really go to, and even though it's not easy, it's easier. I can go to mass, I can go to confession, I can go to adoration. Those things for me as a Catholic are not that hard. But what's really hard is to look at my childhood and the abuse that I had sexually as a teenager and all these other things that happened in my life that I wanted just to ignore and skip over. But it was those things that were holding me back. It was those things that were keeping me from living more authentically. Those things were keeping me from being the man God created me to be. Those things were keeping me from loving myself so that I could truly love my neighbor and so that I can truly love God. So again, that's scripturally. I mean,
Wow.
so that's
Yeah,
what
and
that's
that's
what I'm
where
speaking into.
that's awesome, and that this is so important, the topics that you're bringing up. It's not an and or, these are completing what is necessary. So I did 19 years of peer support training with the Calgary Police Service, and because a lot of policemen deal with trauma on a daily basis and try to process it, right? And so how best to process, and peer support, the studies show, is very effective, and I think that is in essence what we are trying to do at Heroic Men, is give places for men to walk together so that they feel like they're not alone, and it's not all for uh what you talked about, like there's different processes for different people, and it's not like a cookie cutter, here, do this and this will fix you, right? It's important that we listen and walk with our brothers through whatever it is that they're doing. And a good example for me was, I think on our phone call I told you about, because I had this training and understanding when I lost my father in December 13th, and then I'm dealing with it as the oldest son and father of 8, and my son got engaged on December 24th. My daughter gave birth to twins on December 30th, and so lots of these big life things happening. And I also got approached by CMLA to come work, to do this work that I'm doing now. But I also knew it wasn't the time to make that kind of decision. So I think it was, I took a couple weeks and I met with both the police psychologist, who I met a number of times over the years just to do some check-ins for mental health, and then my spiritual advisor on the same day, because you gotta work with both, and men really struggle quite often reaching out for mental health help, and just how do we best help them in that area to learn.
That's a great question, Sean, because that is a huge challenge for people in our work, right? You guys try to draw men into your groups, me trying to draw men into my brotherhood to work with them. There's lots of other solutions out there, but men feel like an island. They feel like their problem's different, or they don't value themselves enough to even invest in themselves to get the help that they need, or they've been raised in a way where you know asking for help is weak, right? You don't want to appear to be weak, so you don't get help, which is just the opposite. It takes courage to get help, and to get help is very empowering because we're way more powerful together as a group than any individual, right? So There's such power in brotherhood. There's such power in getting together and doing these types of things. And like you said, it's not a either or. It's it's both. Whenever a man asks me, "Oh, should I do this, Coach Kenneth, or should I do this?" and I'm like, "Why are you choosing? You do both. Go to the 12-step meeting, go to the therapy, or go to the therapy and join the brotherhood. Like whatever it is, like you got to do multiple things. Some men need serious help in their physical, health. They need to get a physical coach. They need to get, mental health help. They need brotherhood. They need it all. And right now, we are sitting on a powder keg. Besides the loneliness, 3 out of 4 suicides are men. Anxiety in men is
Yep.
up 164%. Depression's up 109%. And yes, we're way less likely to seek help than women. Women have a much higher percentage of seeking help, even though, because if you go online and go, oh, well, women are way more than anxious than men. Well, that's true, but it's because of the way it's measured. Our anxiety is different as men, right? So the stresses that we put on ourselves, we're the providers, we're the protectors. We have all this stress on us as men. And the way we react to that a lot of times is really on the scale of anxiety, and they don't even want to admit it. And we need to just call it what it is. We need to call it out. And that's the other thing that I bring a voice into this kind of community is like, we've got to call each other out. We've got to start calling each other out and calling each other forward. Because if a man keeps doing what he's doing and he keeps hurting, and this is unfortunate, and I shared this with Sean when we spoke before. I was speaking with a priest about his men's group, and I brought up suicide, and he stopped because 2 weeks prior, in their men's group, one of the men committed suicide. And he was active, and he was always there, but we hide. We're not sharing everything, right? We're not starting our meetings. Heroic men meetings don't start with, okay, men, everybody raise their hand who's still struggling with porn. Normally, that's not how we start meetings, but I think we should, right? Let's get serious, let's get real, and start calling each other forward because talking about porn, 70% of all men are looking at porn, right? This is a huge problem right now because it's so easy, it's everywhere. And and it's so enticing to get rid of my problems for the moment by looking at pornography. So again, we have to make sure that we're not hiding this. We got to shine light on all this. There's a lot of men who are again drinking alcohol to excess, vaping, smoking cigarettes, gaming, binge watching TV, overworking, overeating, we find so many ways to check out, and we can do the same thing. And here, part of my story, I haven't shared a lot of my story. I was in Louisville, Kentucky, at a parish, and this is, being married to the same woman 17 years, 3 kids. We were on several committees at the church. I was in charge of the Eucharist, or my wife was in charge of Eucharist ministers. I was in charge of the altar servers. I was on the grounds committee. My kids, they would roll their eyes when we'd say, "Okay, kids, get dressed. We're going to the parish." My kids, they would roll their eyes
You-
because we're going to the
You're,
parish
st-
again,
you're
being on my phone. So we spent a lot of time at the parish, and years later, I look back, and all I was doing is running from my problems at home. I dragged everyone down the parish. We continuously did something. We were we were barely home. We were deeply involved in the scouts, everything in the parish, everything in the school, and my wife and I didn't have time to even look at and deal with the problems that we're having in our marriage. So we can use just about any way to escape, and it might even look healthy. It might even look okay, but all we're doing is running from our problems. And and again, what I am doing is saying, okay, men, let's stop. Let's look in the mirror. Who's looking back at you? And if you can't authentically and congruently say, I love you to that man in the mirror, you've got work to do. You have got work to do beyond going to a meeting, beyond opening up scripture, beyond going to mass. You've got work to do. Again, whether that's therapy, counseling, coaching, mentoring, teaching, 12 step, whatever it is, you've got to get busy and stop just doing the one thing and do everything that you need to do, because I'm going to bring this back to what I was sharing earlier. If we're not going to call each other out, call each other forward, those men that are hurting are hurting. their wives and their children. And so I do the work I do for them. I do the work I do for the wife and the children that are at home suffering under this man's leadership that has his own pain, his traumas and wounds, and he's taking it out on his family unknowingly. It's not from a place of malice. It's not thought out, but he's got to be made aware that you are not just hurting you, you're hurting your wife and you're hurting your kids because you're passing this down, right? 4 generations. We
Yeah,
we pass stuff down.
yeah.
I could, if I shared my family story, you'd understand. But again, so I'm
Well,
the
and it,
one.
yeah, it's interesting you bring that up. My wife and I went to a healing retreat. It's called Triumph up here in Western Canada, and one of the exercises they have you do is to look at that family tree and just uh and try to heal those family wounds that are passed down from generation to generation. And I know I'm going to pass stuff on to my children, but I also try hard to recognize them, and that's where going to get help. Father Larry in our new series Be a Man that's coming out tomorrow as of this recording, uh, and he talks about there are no such thing as lone wolves as disciples of Jesus Christ. There's he built us for brotherhood. Jesus sent them out two by two. So it's in order for you to move forward as a disciple of Christ, you need the healing of Christ, and that's where we talk about that divine intimacy. And whether that's mental health, physical, yeah, this is such an important topic, and especially for our young men who are struggling. Uh, what what advice do you give them, or how do you get men to start mentoring or inviting other men?
Thank you for that question, Sean, because yes, very important. I didn't grow up with an example of true masculine leadership. So I recognize it now. I'm 58, so I'll share my age. I have a lot of gray hair. I'm 58 years old. I have 6 kids. And when I'm working with young people, and I'm starting to work with younger and younger people, because it used to be in men's work, in my line of work, men were in their late 40s, 50s, 60s. Most everyone, late 40s, 50s, 60s. Then I started seeing 30 and 35, like younger and younger, because these boys, young men, are not growing up with a lot of masculine men around them. And they're recognizing it sooner and sooner, which is beautiful. Thank you. If you're a young person or a young man, like in your 20s, welcome, welcome, welcome. You want to surround yourself with masculine men, not peers that are also struggling, because that's the other thing about group. I do recommend group, but it's also you got to make sure you're in the right group. It's not about being out with the guys that are drinking and partying whatever, but being around mature masculine leaders and absorbing all of their wisdom. You don't have to be 58 years old to have all the wisdom that I have. You can gain the wisdom that I have by hanging out with men like me, and at a much earlier age make better decisions than we made. We made all the mistakes and we can share them with you, right? I got the gray hair to
Yep.
prove it. And age is also not exactly a determining factor. One of the most wise men I know, his name's Tiago, and he lives in Portugal, and he's 26 years old. He's way wiser than I am. So I'm not saying it has to be old men. I'm saying they need to be wise. So find wise, knowledgeable men who are also struggling in life and are working hard to have a better life, to live into their fullest potential, to be the man that God created them to be. Those are the men you want to be around. That's all I want to surround myself with are men like that. And because those are the men that are going to be saints, right? Because there was no perfect saint. We all struggled. Well, Mary was perfect, but I mean, in general, saints aren't perfect people either. So it for the young people,
Yep.
that's my message would be you get around mature, masculine, wise men and hang onto their shirt tails and just stay with them wherever they go and learn from them. Because again, we're not learning it from society. Society has completely destroyed masculinity, completely destroyed it. And we've got to be able to speak in those terms and not be afraid of those terms in our faith. Jesus Christ was the most masculine man to ever walk the planet. I want to be more like him. He took a stand. He was congruent. He was honest. He was a man of integrity. He was the protector of the feminine heart. All the things that we could use to describe true masculinity, Jesus was and is. So we we need to be able to change the way we approach this topic. We need to be able to change our language around it, and we got to stop being afraid of again calling each other forward. When you see a man in pain, not to pat him on the back and say everything's going to be okay. No, it's not. It's not going to be okay if you don't change something in your life. If you're going to keep drinking, or if you're going to keep looking at porn, or if you're going to keep the fare up, if you're going to keep whatever you're doing, it's not okay. And we've got to be able to speak that way to each other. And every man that I've ever spoken with like that has thanked me because we all deep down inside want that. We want that from each other. I need Sean to be direct with me. I need Sean to call me out if I'm off my path. I need Sean to do that, and I need to do that for Sean. And every man that's in my life and every man that's in your life, we got to do the same.
Well, and we also have to be examples for others. And uh, I don't know if there was a video interview Bishop Barron did with Dr. Leonard Sachs, and I've had the pleasure of meeting him a couple times, and he did an interview with me on my other podcast, A Dram with Friends, which is also available on Heroic Men, guys. But it was fascinating that like so many people try to treat boys. He was talking about boys the same as girls, and we are different, and we deal with things differently. Where girls get in a circle to and talk about their feelings, men are more comfortable shoulder to shoulder, and they're not, especially younger men, they're not going to say how they feel about something. So you have to find different ways to draw them out. And he talked about they're drawn to heroic men. So they want those heroic stories. They want to see that men live life heroically. And that's where we can be that example to a man by just living a heroic life. And that includes the struggles and the hard parts and everything, but it's how you deal with it.
Yes, I 100% agree with you, Sean. It's all in how we deal with it. We can, as we're learning and have learned for a long time, men stuff it down. So emotions come up, we stuff it down. We don't want to cry. You don't want to look weak. We don't want to, again, what have you. Whatever our story is, we got lots of stories. When I was 7, 8 years old, Kenny, what are you crying about? I'll give you something to cry about, right? Like, so we learned at a very young age not to emote for whatever reasons. Or we learned
Yeah.
that over emoting got us attention. So there's the wounded little boy that cries at everything. And that's how we got attention from mom when we were young. And sometimes that we bring that into our marriages and it don't work. So again, it's
Yep.
dealing with our emotions maturely. A mature masculine man emotes. A mature masculine man shares his feelings with other men and more deeply with his wife. But what I work on in my brotherhood is if I can get men to be vulnerable with each other, which is part of the brotherhood, we get vulnerable with each other because there's no judgment in the brotherhood. Then they learn and they're trained that they can be vulnerable with their wives, and it completely changes their relationships. Completely changes their relationships. So, yes, we help break down those barriers. We give them a safe space. We make an environment of non-judgmental. I There's no way I can judge anybody. I grew up in the streets of Las Vegas. I'm 30 years clean and sober. I've been widowed. There's nothing that I haven't experienced or done myself. Years of porn abuse and like I've done it. I've done everything. So there's nothing a man can say that would shock me. Just like a priest would say, "Look, you can confess to me anything. You're not going to shock me. You're not going to shock me." I've had men confess murders and all sorts of things to me. You don't shock me, and I don't judge you. And when you have that kind of environment, and men can really speak and unload and feel the sadness and the grief and the anger and everything, and be in a safe place, it's a game changer.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I found doing peer support. And yeah. And 33 and a half years of policing, there's probably very little that's going to shock me either. But yeah, I want to congratulate you on your work. Continue to do the work. How do if somebody's looking for you, how do they find you?
I'll start with the website. So it's Catholic Men's Coaching, all one word, .com. Catholic Men's, plural, coaching.com. Kenneth at CatholicMen'sCoaching.com is my email address. Again, anybody can email me. I am in the Heroic Men billboard online. You guys can find me there. I'm there in there chatting with the men that show up there. Um, I'm on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm pretty easy to find if you Google my name.
And for those that so on the heroicmen.org website, there's a link to another app. It's called Heroic Brotherhood. And you can get both the Heroic Men app and the Heroic Brotherhood app on your Google Play or your I'm sure Apple. I'm not an Apple guy, but you can find those, download them, and join us on Heroic Brotherhood. And it's meant to be a platform where we can share what's happening in our lives and or the good things like next weekend I'm going to be in Winnipeg for their very first men's conference, uh, which is exciting, or their first one in decades, because I know they had one in the late '90s there. So this is really exciting, and it's an opportunity for men to come out. There's on heroicmen.org. You can go. There's a map there where we're trying to map the conferences and small men's groups. We're in the midst of building that out. And if you have one, please go to that map and register your small men's group or your men's conference so that we can other brothers can find you. And that's what it's meant to be. So thank you, Kenneth, for stopping by today. Any final words for the men that
If anything in this conversation sparked that you know that you need to do something, do it now. The time is always now. When we tell ourselves I'll do it tomorrow, or I tell myself I'll do it next week, we intentionally put it off means that we're not going to do it. We're not going to get it done, right? It's just like when a man uses the word try. Oh, I'll try to do that. It's just an easy way out. You're either going to do it or you're not going to do it. I would challenge you to stay in that kind of language. So if you know that you need to do something, if you know you need to get it to a 12-step meeting, get online, find it right now. If you know you need a therapist, you go online right this moment and you make that appointment. If you even slightly think that Catholic coaching is going to be something that you need, contact me right now. Don't put it off. Email me right now. Go to my website right now. Don't put it off. Because when we put things off, we do tend to
thank
just keep putting it off.
yeah. And on that note, a theme of one of our conferences a couple years ago, memento mori, or Brett Powell in his, like, what is your obituary going to say? What do you want it to say? Now's the time to start working on that. And please don't hesitate to reach out to heroic men if you need connections, or we're trying to develop leaders with our heroic launch program to make missionary disciples so that we can reach other men. So there's lots of resources and tools out there. Please avail yourself of them and know that you're not alone, men. God loves you and has an amazing plan for you. So thank you, Kenneth, and I look forward to many more conversations in the future.
Amen,
All
Sean.
right, Peter.
Amen.